Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Tessman from stampyourartout.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Andover, Minnesota in the US, and today I'm bringing to you a bonus pre-recorded online paper crafting class where I'll walk you through the steps of how to almost triple the cards from one of Stampin' Up's really awesome kits in the kits collection called the Best Destination Kit. I love to travel and see new places, so this kit called to me. But even if I didn't travel, I would still love this kit. First of all, the sentiments are metaphorical and speak about life being a journey and happiness being the best destination. So great messages for encouragement and for celebrating milestones and big changes. Plus the imagery and the full design of the cards are just amazing. These are the supplies that came with this month's kit. And when you assemble the cards as shown, you create 9 beautiful fun fold cards, 3 of 3 different designs. As with all our kits, the steps for creating those cards can be found within the direction sheet or by following the steps in the how-to video, and there's a link on the back side to access that. I invite you to watch what I share today because I'm going to show you how to increase the value of the parts and pieces of this particular kit. So instead of making 9 cards, you'll be able to make 24 just by adding in some extra cardstock and some envelopes. And in the video, to make it speedier, I'm going to show you how to take 3 of the cards and turn them into 8. And then what you do is you just multiply that by 3 to get your 24. Because the kit's collection is from Stampin' Up!, the colors, images, and supplies always coordinate with other Stampin' Up! Products. The tools and supplies that I'll be using are listed below and linked to my online store. You can also find links for how to get to the Kits Collection kit online so you can see all of the choices, how to get to my blog so that you can see other creative ideas that I share quite often, and how to get to the post that's connected with this video so that you can see photos of the finished cards that I'm sharing with you today. Some of the supplies that are listed below are optional. For example, the blocks. You do get a block in each of your kits that have a stamp set, so you can build up your block collection that way. I like to use the ergonomic ones. I'll also use additional adhesive like my seal and some more dimensionals because we don't get a ton in each kit, right? So I'm supplementing the adhesive. I'm using a different ink pad than the one that was provided in the kit, but you could certainly use the Gorgeous Grape ink. I'll be using Pretty Peacock, and then I'm adding to the embellishments. So I'm going to be using the birds and dragonflies in addition to the twine, and I'm bringing in an extra stamp set called Layering Leaves because I just want to give you more sentiment options, but you could certainly just stick with the stamp sentiments that are in the kit. A few other things before we dive into how to make this first of 8 cards. If you enjoy what I share, please share the link with your friends and family. Click the thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube or my blog so that you can see other creative ideas in the future, and please comment below because it helps me to get to know my viewers. All right, for this card, you can see we're going to be using this card base here, and you can also tell that this piece that you would normally consider scrap is going to be integrated into the card. We're only going to be using the 2 of the 3 panels though, so let's remove that first panel. That will be saved for another card because it's so pretty. So we're just going to cut here along that score line. And you'll notice too, because this is a fun fold card, this part would be tucked under here, so it's slightly shorter than 4 1/4 inches. So when you cut along that score line, make sure that you're cutting along the score line instead of at 4 1/4 inches. Otherwise, you're going to shorten pieces that you don't want to. Have a sharp blade too, maybe a new blade, or make sure your blade is turned around. Now we're going to fold in this direction because we're creating a Z fold. So let's grab our bone folder. Line everything up and make everything nice and crisp. This part's now going to be folded back, so half of 4 1/4 inches. Remember, this is the shorter piece, not that. This one is the one that wasn't 4 1/4 inches wide. It was just slightly under. But this one is 4 1/4 inches wide through here. So we're going to fold that halfway at 2 1/8 inches. And we're going to press that back in this direction. That is why we need that white piece to stay here so that it can fill back in. But I thought it'd be fun to share some depth here. So we're going to make this pop backwards just a little bit with the use of dimensionals. So now we grab our Pretty Peacock cardstock, and we just need 1/4 of that sheet. So we're going to trim in this direction halfway at 4 1/4 inches, and then we're going to trim in this direction halfway at 5 1/2 inches. This is the base of our card. This is the part that creates the stability. So we need to flip this over, and now we're going to add dimensionals. Remember, we needed extra dimensionals. Here they are, because the ones that come in the kit won't be enough to complete all the cards that we're going to do. You're going to make 24, you guys. This is crazy, right? So I'm putting a few of these really close to the window part, the part that pops up. Plus, do you see this here? I'm going to cover that up. It's a part that normally you would just delete, or delete, that you would just pop out of there, but we're going to keep that in there. And then we'll add some dimensionals on the outer 4 corners. Now you can certainly add more if you want to, but you don't need to. You just need something around the window to keep it propped up, and then you need something on the 4 corners to give the illusion that the whole entire thing is completely raised. I removed the backings or the release paper on all of my dimensionals, and now what I'm going to do is carefully apply this piece to the back side. I'm keeping my card flat, and I'm checking to make sure that all of my corners are lining up with each other. Press that in place, flip it over, and now you can see there's a little bit of a shadow under there. There's a darkening through here, so that means we lifted our window, which is great. Now we can put this in the middle, and because we don't have extras of these, we might as well just add it and then stamp it. So I'm going to take my seal adhesive, because that's super quick. You could also use multi-purpose liquid glue or whatever your adhesive is of choice. And we're going to lay this in here so it fits into those parts, and like a puzzle, just bring it back in. Very fun, right? All right, next we're going to stamp. And you can see I'm using the one that looks like a ticket, so we'll grab that piece here. This is our pile of we need to still use. So we're going to put this piece back in there because we haven't used it yet, right? Now let's grab our ticket, and I think I'm going to grab my Stampin' Pierce mat too, just to give our surface a little bit of a cushion underneath. This is the one where we're going to use the travel, life is a journey. I love that message. Life is a journey, travel it well. Open up our Pretty Peacock pad, ink up our stamp. Because it's clear, we can see right through it. Make sure that the words are parallel to the top and bottom of the ticket. Press it down, set that aside, grab your card. Do the same thing with the inside, looking at your words and the top and bottom of your card to make sure that those are parallel with each other. Now we're going to attach this piece, and when we attach it, we want to attach it with a dimensional so that it's higher up than this surface, but also covering up the word well. So let's grab this and just line it up with our phrase and put a dimensional right here, because we know that that will be a place where we need adhesive. And we can also add a little bit more behind this side of it. But let's do this. Let's connect our flower. Now I'm going to bring in that multi-purpose liquid glue. Let's connect our flower with the top corner of our ticket like that. I had some extra glue come out here. Now we'll grab the stem of our flower, put a little bit of that excess glue there, and tack it down. We'll let that dry for a second. I'll go clean off my hands. And that serves me right for using my glue, because I wasn't going to. I was actually going to use the glue dots that come in the kit. But now we can take our dimensional and put it right here where the flower is, give it a little bit of support. In fact, let's use the dimensionals that come in the kit because they're slightly smaller, or we could cut down the this sheet here if you've used up all your small ones. But we'll just put one here, and let's stick one down here too. And now we've got those places raised up. You can see they're going to work right in with that dimensional. Pull off the release paper, and now when we set this down, we want to make sure again that it's covering up the the ELL on the end of the word well, and then it's nice and straight. And now we just need embellishments. So we're going to take out our sheet of birds and dragonflies, and I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to bend the wing on this side and the wing on that side. And I'm going to set it down right here when my card is folded so that I can see it when the card is closed and open. So now we've got kind of a little three-dimensional dragonfly there. It sparkles in a couple different directions. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Adding our dragonfly coming into the flower, and there's that finished card. Super easy, right, you guys? Okay, let's do the next one. The next two cards are similar. So what I have here is a card that opens to see this panel on the inside. It's just a normal type of fold, but we have a window, right? And what I did is I cut the base of this card into three pieces. I used this one on top, this one on the inside, so you can see there, and oops, this one on the inside. And then this one I saved for another card. But if you fold it this way, you're not going to get that look, right? So we have to separate these two pieces in half and attach them again together. And so what I did is I put something more subtle in here. You could use the Pretty Peacock cardstock and have a green line coming through here, which is totally fine, but I wanted it not to show up as much, so I used vellum cardstock. Because we won't be seeing the vellum, it's on the back side of the card, it's okay if we connect it with adhesive on all four sides. And then you also see some adhesive through here. This piece I added, it stands out a little bit, but I think on the one that I demonstrate right now, it's not going to show up as much. So let's trim this into three pieces along the score lines. Save this one for another card. Let's poke out this center piece. And if you flip it over, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3 more items that you can poke out. This one I want to keep in there. I had a revelation. Actually, I remembered what I did. So I put adhesive all along that strip of vellum here, and then this part was sticky. So I stuck that little piece back inside. Let's poke this out on this version, get rid of it, and just be smart about where we add our adhesive. So let's take the vellum cardstock. Again, you could use Pretty Peacock if you want to. We're gonna make 2 of these, so I'm just gonna score both of these at the same time. We're scoring at 4 1/4 inches. Be careful with vellum. You can actually cut vellum if you score too hard. And now we're gonna go over to 4 3/4 inches. And we're going to cut. Let's turn in this direction and slice it 5 1/2 so that we have 2 bases ready to go. When you score vellum, it pushes the cardstock just slightly into one direction. Unlike cardstock, you want to actually go with the flow of where you bent it. So let's score it right there. And again, remember, we're going to be smart about where we put our adhesive. So let's connect this piece first to this piece. We're going to bring these together. I'm going to put adhesive along the 4 sides, and we have to be careful because vellum really likes to connect to adhesive. It grabs on tight. So when we put this down, bring it in there. I have to shift it. Hang on. Okay, we're going to bring it together like that so everything's lined up top and bottom, and then we're slowly going to curve and add it to the vellum. Now, do you see what happens here? You can't actually get it all the way right up to that score line because otherwise you're going to have it pucker there. So it's just slightly smaller, which means we need to trim. We're going to take our snips now and we're going to trim along that vellum line. Let's do that with a trimmer to make sure it's straight. We're trimming off about a 1/16 of an inch. There we go. That's cleaned up. Now we can add this piece on top, and keep that hole in your mind when you're doing this. We want to add adhesive here, and then skip, and then there, okay? And we don't want to add it right onto the card because if we do that, we might go too far in. So we're just going to lay this right next to it as a guide. We'll start below, add our adhesive, and we'll turn it around, keep it lined up, and add our adhesive. Yay. When I added this for my other cards, I found it best if I took and lined up these corners and then pushed this piece down. Oh, we're going to have to go a little further in. Then pushed this piece down. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have just a little bit of vellum on the side here exposed, which I think will be okay. And now we're going to trim off. Yeah, that just adds kind of like a white line to it. There we go. That looks great. Ta-da! And now we don't have anything sticky there. Plus we can still see the sky through that hole. Next, we're going to stamp. And for this stamp, we're going to use the one that says, "This adventure is just the beginning." And it has to hide behind the clouds. So if you need to, you can take and put a little tool there to show where you can't stamp below. Yay. And then on the front of the card, we're going to put our car and our bird. And we're going to add it with dimensionals. So when we figured out where it gets placed, and I think I had it right here, I'm going to pull it away and see where I can place dimensionals underneath it. Okay, so that looks good. So we're going to put 2 more here and pull those backings off. When you're working with windows and partial adhesive, you kind of have to work with both, you know, the base and both, you know, like and the piece that you're adding to be smart about where the adhesive is going. Let's grab those birds, and I'm going to add one of these swooping down birds in this corner here. And I think we've done it. Oh, we have one more bird. One more bird on the inside. So a bird that is flying up. Your cards don't have to have sentiments on the front, right? So this is one of those cards where you're like, ooh, what's inside? So the message is right here. This adventure is just beginning. All right, the next one is similar, and I think I'm going to have it be a surprise. So let's take and cut this into 3 parts like we did the other. We have 2 birds flying together on the inside of the card. And we don't have a lot of room for a sentiment. So underneath, I should say. So we're going to stamp it smack dab in the middle. This will be a card where you see it from the outside and inside. And I'm going to bring my image from my favorite stamp set called Layering Leaves. It's my favorite because I achieved $1 million in sales. And I got to help create a stamp set. So this is the stamp set that I helped to design. And I designed it with kits in mind. I designed it knowing that it would be a great stamp set to supplement kits. Lots of different imagery for sentiments, I should say, for all occasion. And then we've also got leaves, foliage type stuff. So, because leaves go with everything. So there we have that finished. Oh, it's not done yet. I have one other thing to add to it. A boat. We got to add our boat. And that boat is so pretty. We're going to remove the center part here. We don't need that. I think we got it all. Okay. And then we will take and put dimensionals on the back like so. And we're going to keep the card closed as we add the boat. so that it looks like it's dipped below the surface here. Let's center it a bit. And then when you open it up, you can see it on the water. Isn't that pretty? I love it. So we've done 3 and we have 5 left to go with only these parts and pieces left. That means we have to get creative with our envelopes. We're going to prepare all of our envelopes right now with our trimmer by cutting off a 1/4 of an inch, not a 1/4, I'm so sorry, a 1/16 of an inch from each side. So on the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, if you're just covering up that dark space on each side, it works. So again, just cover that up and slice. And that opens up our envelope. And we'll want to remove this layer right here for 2 of our cards. So save those. Let's do that again on the next 2. So by using the envelopes, you can see that you can get a lot more. We can definitely make 5 cards from these 6 panels. Let's grab 2 of these pieces like I had mentioned, and we're going to trim them to 3 1/4 inches in this direction. So we're removing the rounded parts on top and the little tab pieces on the side. And then we're going to trim these down. We want to have 5 1/4 inches tall. And right now this measures 5 5/8. So to get to 5 1/4, we need to remove 3/8. So that's just a little bit under a 1/4 of an inch on each side. You can also tell how much that is because what we're really doing is we're removing the part of the envelope here where it has this attachment. So if you do that carefully with each side, you'll probably end up with a piece that is 5 1/4 by 3 1/4. We need these 2 pieces, we need this piece, and we need this piece for the next 2 cards. We also need these label pieces, which means we've run out of labels. Now you do get a couple extra ones in the kit, but we're going to create our own labels, and or we don't need any. We'll see. So let's go ahead and start working with our base cardstock. We need our Pretty Peacock base cardstock, and we're going to cut in half to make 2 cards. Actually, let's score first. So we're going to score in this direction at 4 1/4, 6 3/8, which is difficult to find here, but it's where our trimmer goes just to cover up that dark side there. And then we're going to cut at 8 inches. So we're trimming off a 1/2 inch. Now we'll trim in this direction at 5 1/2 inches. This is a Z-fold card. It's just a little bit more unique because of the panels that we have cut from our cards. So let's start with 1, scoring it to make it into our Z-fold. We'll take this one, and you can see it would fit in here, but we're going to trim it down a bit. We're going to have a white panel on the inside, and that is this piece that we just cut. So that's going to go here, which means this one can go on the outside. And to make it kind of fill in that whole space, we're going to separate this into 2 pieces. We're going to trim this down. Oh, first we actually have to trim in this direction at 5 1/4 to make it just as tall as our white piece. And now in this direction, we're going to trim just under the 3/4 inch mark. So here's the 3/4 inch, and we're going to go just under it. But another way to check that is to make sure that your left edge is right at the 3 1/2 inch mark. let's just do that with this card too. So 5¼ inches tall, just under 3/4 of an inch here. This should make this at 3½. Okay. Now we're going to do some masking. So we're going to take our pieces for this card, and I'm just removing this little circle here. We're going to stamp. I've been forgetting to use the Stamp and Pierce mat, so let me bring that in. And we're going to stamp the sentiment thinking of you, but we're going to do it in 2 different parts. So we're going to mask. We're going to cover up the of you and stamp just the thinking first, and then we'll clean off our stamp and do the opposite. And I forgot to use the Stamp and Pierce mat on my second couple cards. Sorry about that. So I'm just taking some tape and I'm covering up the of you. So it won't get any ink on it, and I didn't make it long enough. Hang on. Got to cover up the whole part. We don't want to have any little extra dots on there. Okay, so we've got that covered. We'll grab our ink pad. We'll ink up the thinking. It also inks up a portion below it, but you'll just remove that tape now to show that there's nothing on the of you. We'll line that up, looking at just the word thinking, and stamp that down onto our little flag piece here. Then on the inside of the card, we're going to stamp the of you, so let's clean off our stamp. And you can use like a damp paper towel, you can use the Stampin' Scrub and Mist, you could use a chamois, but this is a nice clean stamp now, so we're going to go and cover up the word thinking, which I'll have to do in several pieces of tape here. And we'll ink up the bottom portion of the stamp. Peel off the tape. And be careful because we do have ink on this corner now. So don't tip your stamp down. And we'll stamp that. Let's stamp that in the middle. Ta-da! And now we'll assemble that card. You'll want to start with your underlayer first, the one that's on the inside, and we're going to line that so that we have 1/8 of an inch on the side here and on the top and the bottom, an equal size border all the way around. This piece is the one with the wiggle room. We can shift it closer or further away, but I want it to also have 1/8 of an inch between here and here. So when I lay that down, I'll be looking for that. Also make sure that you're adding it correctly. And then this piece will get added here, and when we open it up, it should line up with what we had for our strip image here. So you see how that's lining up also with having 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Because we are not attaching the full back, you'll want to be careful of how you do your adhesive. So here's what I recommend. Doing adhesive on the left side of this fold. It doesn't have to go all the way down, but on the left side of the fold, and then adding adhesive along this left edge. Which now looks like it's on the right because I had to flip it around. And then we'll just keep it all flat. Oh no, we want to fold it. You want to fold it because that is the reason we added the white first. Because when you add this, you want to line it up so it's covering up the white. And it's sticking to my hands. Line it up so it's covering up the white, but also has 1/8 of an inch all the way around. It's the most important piece. It has to look even, and it has to finish off your card. So there we have that. Now we have about 11 to 12 inches of twine. We're going to bring it through the whole of this flag piece so it's even on each end. We have about the same amount. We're going to tie it in a loose knot like that, not really a knot, but overhand, and then we'll do a bow, and if you want to, you can do a knot first. We'll tie our bow and adjust the ends. We'll add this with dimensionals onto the front panel. And I'm just looking at my other card to make sure I'm doing it correctly. There we go. So thinking, and we can trim the ends if we want to, or keep it nice and flowing and loose and long. And then we have an embellishment. And I had this Take Your Pick tool showing when I first showed my supplies because I do often use it for my embellishments. Basically, it has a little gummy end that you can take and push and shove to pick up your embellishments with if you want to. You can take and pick up tiny pieces of paper with it. It also has a pokey end, so you could slide your tool up underneath to grab it. And there's a spatula, plus you have a stylus end that comes with it. And there's all these other attachments that you can buy separately. But it's a great tool for crafting. So there we have that finished card. This next one is pretty simple to put together. We don't have any masking. For this one, we're gonna ink up Life's a Journey. Let's grab our Stampin' Pierce mat. We're gonna stamp that onto this label. And on the inside of the card, travel it well, centered. This one we'll add first, as I shared in the last card. Same type of card, same type of fold. I forgot to fold the card base though. Here's our card base that we had made. Let's grab our bone folder and crease it. Be careful when you add your adhesive to pieces and where you place them. Okay, that goes here with 1/8 of an inch all the way around. This strip goes next. Line it up before. Make sure there's 1/8 of an inch separating the two. It's okay if this is coming closer to the inside fold, by the way. You just don't want it to be right on top of the fold. And then, of course, adding our adhesive here. And make sure I do that right. Right here. Keep the card closed because I'm right-handed. I have to turn it upside down. Line up the corners. Get it off your hand. Stick it down so we have a good border going all the way around here. This gets added with a couple dimensionals. We don't have any twine on this one, I don't think. No, we don't. But I have one of those fun little dragonflies to put on the inside. This one we're going to offset off to the right a bit because we have this this mountainous little or cliffish kind of looking scene coming in here, and it gives it more balance. And then we'll just grab our Take Your Pick tool on this end. You can give your dragonfly a little curve of the wings, but it's on the inside of the card. And if you do so, it will probably flatten out if it's going through the mail. So, well, the other ones will flatten out too. But you don't want to have like a lot of dimension or lift on the inside layers of your cards. Creates little like indentations on undersides of top layers. So there's that one. We have 2 more done. Let's do our last 3. For the next 3 cards, I did use the 2-inch circle punch to make labels that stand out on my cards, but you can see with these cards that there's a lot of white space here too. So you could technically, if you don't want to invest in another tool, you don't have a circle punch, you could technically omit this and just stamp your best wishes over here. You can stamp "You're so happy to celebrate" over here, that sort of thing. So, well, you might have to have a different sentiment on that one because this is a pretty big sentiment. You might have to have a different one over there. If you're just going to stamp on the white space. So let's prepare our "So happy to celebrate you" and our best wishes with our scrap. This is the one that we weren't going to use for a card layer. So we're going to go ahead and stamp onto this, but we needed to get 3. So I'd say let's punch first. Let's punch all of our circles first. So we're going to punch 1 in the lower corner, 1 in this lower corner, and then 1 in through here, because we have a third card, and that third card also uses the 2-inch circle punch. So let's set one of those off to the side, grab our Stampin' Pierce mat, and make sure we're stamping on the correct side. Oh, and you also might want to peel away any envelope side layers there, because they will just kind of give it a little bump when you stamp. So let's clean those up. And then make sure that you're not stamping on the rough side. Grab our Pretty Peacock ink. So happy to celebrate you. Because it's a clear photopolymer stamp, we can see right through it, so we can punch first and then stamp. We'll do that with both for our cards. There is a difference between the two cards. I don't know if you noticed that, but when you look at them, we will be using different measurements for each one, and it's basically just based on the fact that the envelope design is different for each card. But first, let's cut the card base. The basic card base is pretty easy. It's hamburger style, so it's cut this way and then scored this way. Let's score both of them at 4 1/4 inches. And then let's cut in this direction at 5 1/2. We have 2 card bases. Keep your trimmer handy. Now we're going to take and use this one and cut it down to 4 inches tall. That leaves us with this white piece here, which is going to be the piece that forms on the inside of the card here, this panel. So for that piece, we want that to be 4 inches tall in this direction, right? So we can just trim off. Let's trim off an equal amount on each side. If this is 5 5/8, that's what we mentioned before, right? And we want to get it down to 4 inches, then we need to trim off a little over 3/4 inch on each side. Should do it. And we have to flip this because we need the flat edge against the trimmer. And then that will give us a piece that we can use for over here, which we'll trim down to. Now let's grab this one. We'll just prepare that the same way. So 4 inches tall. Trim at a little over 3/4 inch. And then the same thing on the other side, only we're bringing it to the 4 inch mark. We're checking to make sure that's 4 inches tall. So this one we'll save for here. For our card base, we're going to put a slit in the front. So you have to look at your envelope and decide, and this is if you're going to apply it to some other envelope, because you can totally copy my measurements for this kit, but you're going to decide what parts of the envelope are the most important. And you can see here that I don't care about having this excess piece here, so we can trim off from this area. But when we put these together, there's going to be an 1/8 inch gap between the two of them. So instead of being 5 1/4 inches wide, which is what that panel normally would be if we were just going with a full panel, 5 1/4, we're actually going to go 5 1/8 because we're removing an inch, or I'm sorry, an 1/8 inch, which will decrease this here. So if we cut this to 5 1/8 inches, will that still include this little mound of rock here? And yes, it will. So let's take and remove that. And then we can decide where we want to cut. Really, we can cut it wherever, But we have to remember that this piece, which could be at the most, let's just trim it to 2 1/4 inches here. I guess it could be barely 2 3/8. Let's trim it to 2 1/4. So this one, to get rid of the rounded edge, has to be 2 1/4 inches. That gives us 2 1/4 inches here. That allows this piece to be 2 1/4 inches. So again, I guess that kind of tells us where to cut, doesn't it? You could, of course, with a different envelope design, choose some extra paper wherever. So in case you want to cut down the middle, you could have a wider piece of white on the inside. But we can only go to 2 1/4 at the most on this, and that is plenty fine with me. So for our card base, we need it to be a 1/4 of an inch wider than 2 1/4, which would give it 2 1/2. Let's check. Yes, 2 1/2. So now we take and open up our card, and let's say this is the, you better check to see where this is the front. So we want to cut 2 1/2 here. I'm going to turn it in this direction, bring it to the 2 1/2 inch mark, start at my score line, and cut to have that 2 1/2 inch little flap. Now we can add everything. We'll add this one first. Checking to make sure I have an 1/8 of an inch border on all 4 sides. On the inside, I can add this piece. Oh, there's the adhesive on my envelope. So that's the back side. If this score line bugs you, again, you could bring in extra cardstock, but I'm just going to have it close to the middle here. So it kind of is like an embellishment, a little part of the design. This gets stuck down flat to the card. That part doesn't open. Smarter to do here, Rachel. So now we're going to add adhesive to this panel. And not sloppy like Rachel did. There we go. That goes down like that. And you know what? Since we have part of the card open and part of it closed, and you can see there's a little bit cardstock off there, I'm just going to trim that. Of course, you could use a trimmer if you want to make sure that you have a nice straight cut. Okay, now it's lined up. Now we just have to add this front one and our sentiment and embellishment. Now the front one is a little bit wider because our 1/8 of an inch is here. This piece doesn't need to have an 1/8 of an inch border on the panel here. It just needs to come right up to that edge. The panel that was stuck down, it goes right to that edge. Ta-da! I think I'm going to trim this one up too. Now, again, in this case, you could stamp the best wishes here, but we do have it on a circle piece, so I'll just add with my dimensionals. Again, place an adhesive on the underside piece, the underlayer, and then the layer that you're adding when it's not going to reach all the way across the whole thing. Make sure that your wishes look straight. We've got a bird to bring in here. I do not have nail polish, so it's easy for me to lift up these embellishments without the Take Your Pick tool. And there is that finished card. Let's do the next one. So the next one looks like this. It's slightly narrower in through here, and that is because I believe I wanted all of these trees. And if we cut it so that this was narrower, like as in this one here, we cut that one, yeah, it would cut off the tree. So our measurements are different because we don't want to remove that tree. It's so cute there, right? So we're going to include that. And I'll tell you what I used here. I used 3 1/8 inches. And I think what I did is I went to my trimmer and I said, okay, to include the tree, which nice measurement would we go up to? And it looked like it went, yep, right to the 3 1/8. So 3 1/8, but we want these trees. So the part that we're going to throw away is this. Now if this is 3 1/8, then we want 5 1/8 inch total. 5 1/8, take away 3 1/8 equals 2. This panel needs to be 2 inches. Which means the underside, or the piece that goes on the inside of the card with the rounded edge, needs to be just 2 inches and not 2 1/4 on this card. So now moving to our card base, if our inside panel is 2 inches, then our piece here, and actually we're going to put it on that side, right? Because this is the way our trees line up. They go like that. So our piece here needs to be 2 1/4 because this was 2 inches. So let's lay it into our trimmer at 2 1/4 inches. Start at the score line and trim. We're going to adhere this piece down first. And now we can connect this to the inside. And then on the outside, we can connect this piece. In fact, let's do that one first. Let's connect it to this edge so it lines up with the design of the inside. And now when we connect this one, we can line it up with our trees on the outside. Place our sentiment up onto dimensionals, and it's going to go halfway between. If you wanted to, you could cut that tree, and then this would be a wider panel here. If you didn't have a circle punch, you could just cut through that tree and just do the math that I shared with you earlier. Because this is going to go over half of it, looks like we need one here. Oops, like that, and like that. And then we'll put one on the outside here. Watching your words as you're adding it to the front of your card so that they are straight. And for the embellishment on this card, we're going to add one dragonfly, and because it's going to be on the outside, we can tilt those wings to give it a fun 3D effect that gets a little bit more sparkle when you move it. So pretty. The last card involves using almost a full sheet of Pretty Peacock cardstock. At least we're going to cut in this direction at 5 1/2. So this piece is not being used for a card base, but don't throw it away because that's a good amount of cardstock to use for something else. In this direction, we're going to cut at 10 1/4 inches, which you can't see on the video. Sorry about that. 10 1/4 because I've extended the arm of my trimmer. And then from the two sides, we're going to score at 4 1/4 inches to create the base. And that leaves us with 6 inches left. So we want to cut or score through the middle of that, which 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we'll just come in from this side and score at 3. But if you were moving it in one direction on your trimmer, it would be 4 1/4 and then 7 1/4 inches. And we'll fold that into a Z-fold. Keep our trimmer handy because we'll need it for cutting the envelope down. Now we're going to trim our envelope, and we want the height to be 5 1/4 inches. I know we've got this angled little part here, right? These two little sides are angled, so we're going to trim in on each side so that we're lining up this point of the angled corner with our trimmer. I think I'm going to start from that side. It's always best to not hit right on the corner of something when you're cutting into the corner. And then on this side, we'll do the same thing. Bringing it right up to the channel of our trimmer and cutting that off. We want 2 3/4 inches cut from this side, which should leave about 2 3/4 inches on the other side. Yes. So if you cut exactly, you'll have a piece that is 5.5 inches wide, and you're just going to cut it in half at 2 3/4 inches. No worries about the score line. I just use that as like a little decoration. These will be panels that go on the inside of our card. Did I say, okay, 5 1/4, right? 5 1/4. Shoot, did I cut my base wrong? Yeah, these are 5 1/4. I cut my base wrong. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna cut this to 5.5 inches tall. I did it at 5 1/4 inches tall, sorry. I corrected my card base and now we can move on. So I trimmed off 1/4 inch from the top, which made this 5 1/4 inches tall. And I also trimmed off a little bit from the left side, which made this piece 4 inches wide. And it's ready to add to the inside panel of our card base. This one will get added to the outside. And this one will get added to the middle. Now we're going to add our sentiments, and our sentiments are going to be the happiness one, which will get stamped onto our circle here. So let's grab our Stampin' Pierce mat, open our ink pad, ink up the stamp. Because it's a circle, make sure you have it on the correct side. Because it's a circle, you can stamp anywhere as long as it's in the middle, and then you can rotate to make it straight. So this will be placed on our card, and I'm peeking up my finished one. It's going to get placed on our card about there, which means our sentiment, inside sentiment, is going to get stamped right across from it about here. So let's grab our Stampin' Pierce mat, line everything up, and place that right there. This will get lifted with dimensionals, 3 for balance. Some people even use their take your pick tool to remove the backings on the dimensionals. Again, I have fingernails that don't have polish on them anymore. I used to wear polish all the time and it matched my kits and it was so much fun, but I found that it weakened my nails. Sensitive. So one more thing, or 2 more things. We're going to do some twine. So yeah, because I don't wear polish, I don't have the thickness that I did with my nails before, and so I can slip right underneath and grab the backings off of dimensionals and lift up, embellishments. That is the advantage to not wearing nail polish. So I have this pretty bow, and I have these glue dots from the kit. Again, you could use multi-purpose liquid glue because we talked about that. Let's grab this take your pick tool to take off one of these. So we have a glue dot, and we're just going to add it to the left side here so that it's partway on the circle and partway not on the circle. I'm going to put my finger underneath there, get the backing off. Oops, it lifted the whole thing. Hang on, let me try that again. So it's attached, and then we'll remove the backing. And as we remove the backing, okay, this is so much smoother when I did it off camera. As you remove the backing, you're going to flip this over onto the circle. So it's a folded circle. And then this will get added here. You need just a narrow amount of adhesive when you're adding twine, because twine is pretty thin. And my last embellishment is the bird flying up. Oh, let's see here. I have 2 embellishments. I have a bird flying upward here, and I have a bird flying downward here for a little bit of gold on the inside. Plus you see it on the outside. Pretty cool. Ta-da! Here are the 8 cards that we came up with the supplies of 3. Here are the ones that I had made beforehand, and I have still yet another set of 8 that I can create to make 24 cards altogether. Don't forget to also get in on your envelopes, purchase some envelopes so that you can mail your cards or send them or gift them or whatever. I hope that you enjoyed what I had to share today. Remember to also check out past videos because I've shared quite a lot of fun creative ideas with kits and other Stampin' Up! Product. Remember also to refer to this description of my video so that you can see the supplies that I use. There's also, if you're watching this video on YouTube, a link to my blog post where you can then go and visit for close-up photos of the cards that I created and a visual supply list. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video, and thank you for subscribing so that you can see more that I share in the future. In the meantime, have a great week, and now I'd like you all to go and stamp your art out. Bye-bye.